often different from what we think. So here's some review. I put these little points on your note sheet so you can just follow along quickly. Remember, religion relies on rituals and doctrines, but Christianity is the reality of a creator building relationship with his creation. Remember that we don't have time for religious games because our King is coming soon. The whole book of Revelation, it's the last book in the Bible, and the whole book is telling us that our King has come and he's coming again and it's coming soon, so we don't have time to play around. Number 3, we learned that religion by itself is heartless, but following Jesus means having a love for God and a love for others. And then just last week, Brandon taught us that religion is easy. Following the list of do's and don'ts, checking off your to-do list, that's kind of easy, but following Jesus takes tough endurance. And so today, you can tell from the title of the message what your first blank is going to be. It's pretty obvious. We're learning the truth that religion is deceptive. This ought to be a fun morning for us. I want to tell you a story. Some of you know that I'm not very interested in long-distance running. I have made fun of long-distance runners before, and I will do it again because I cannot... Chris points at me. Because I just can't do it. I don't have any endurance, and a long-distance runner would probably tell me that it's just because I've never trained, that if I actually worked on it, I could develop that kind of endurance. But, you know, that hurts. So I'm not going to do it. But when I was younger, there was this thing that my school did called the Jogathon. And in order to do the Jogathon, you went around, and I went to a Christian school, and my dad was the pastor of the church that was with the Christian school. So I had a lot of contacts of people who might want to donate money to this Christian school. And what you were supposed to do is go around with a sign-up sheet and get people to sign on to sponsor you a certain amount of money for a certain number of laps. So I would say, can you sponsor me $1 per lap? And they would say, how many laps are you going to go? And I'd be like, I don't know. 3, 5, somewhere in the single digits. And so they sponsored me, and at the end of the first Jogathon, I remember I came back, and you know, during the Jogathon day, it was like a whole hour walking around, crawling around this track, and I didn't make it very far. I went around, I think, maybe 10 times, and I came back to the awards ceremony, and there were cool awards. Like someone got a ColecoVision. You remember that Coleco? Sweet. Oh, so much fun. And someone else got like a miniature portable TV. Someone got a radio. Someone got like a telescope or something. I thought these were cool things, and I decided, well, it was about time for me to figure out a technique for me to do the Jogathon next year. So the next year, where they showed us the awards in advance, and I saw there was a portable television, and I thought that would be awesome. You know, the TV was a portable TV. Man, I'm old, because the TV, I kid you not, was the size of a modern-day suitcase. It was this wide, and you turn it around, and it was that thick, that deep, and this tall, and the screen was 3 inches. Over here, and all the rest of it was like something, electronics. Voodoo, 1980s voodoo. And so I decided I was going to get this thing, and I had to run laps, though. So I had to come up with a technique for getting myself to run farther. And I discovered this. On the day of the Jogathon, if I kept looking in front of me, I didn't seem to be making much progress. But if I looked straight down, I was hauling. You know, you should try this sometime. You know, run up and down the aisles here when your children aren't watching you. Run up and down these aisles and look ahead of yourself and kind of feel how fast you're going. And then look at the ground and look at these little dots speeding past you. It's like amazing. It's like you're going light speed. And so I did the whole Jogathon looking straight at the ground. And I was just like this. And I made it around like 20-some laps, and I won the television. And on top of it, I won a $100 gift certificate to the mall, with which I bought a tennis racket that I still have to this day, and I almost brought in here to show you, but I thought that would be bragging. So, you know, I'm not supposed to do that. So anyway, I made it through. But looking at the ground is not necessarily the smartest thing to do. I remember the day I was delivering newspapers on my bike, and I had just finished delivering the last newspaper, and I was bored, and I had to ride all the way back home. And if I looked ahead of myself, I was going like 5 miles an hour. And if I looked at the ground, I was doing 100. So I was riding looking at the ground. And I'm pedaling like a banshee, and I'm looking at the ground, and I'm like, woo, woo, this is awesome, this is awesome. And I turned a slight turn, and then I looked up to see the rear end of a pickup truck right in front of my face, and I went, bam, right into the back end of the pickup truck. And I hit it so square and so straight on that the bike didn't even fall over. It just was bang, right into it. My nose broke my fall or my impact, and so I was like, ugh, right into the back end of the pickup truck. And I realized a lesson at that point. Looking down is not so smart. Entertaining maybe, but not so smart. And, we all have little coping mechanisms like that we do. We're trying to accomplish something, we're trying to make it through life, and so we discover a little coping mechanism that helps us accomplish whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. The problem is that those little coping mechanisms sometimes can take our eyes away from where they need to be, can be distractions, can be destructive, can be deceptive. We do it all the time. We do it with food. We do it with chemicals. We do it with relationships. A lot of people, and we're included in that mix, do it with religion. We'll find some aspects of religion that work like a coping mechanism to help us make it through a particular part of our lives, or maybe an overall aspect of our lives. I'm worried about death. Well, some religions have things to say about that, and so I'll use that as a coping mechanism. The problem is religious coping mechanisms by themselves do not inherently prove true. There's nothing necessitating any truth in those different religious schemes. And that's why we've got a bunch of different religious schemes, and people say they're all the same thing, or they're all just equally valid, because religion by itself has no inherent truth to it. Religion is deceptive. I want to just teach you a little bit about how deception works before we look at our passage today. So here's a blanks to fill in. Deception starts with, that makes sense, and leads to something distracting or destructive. Deception starts with, that makes sense, and leads to something distracting or destructive. How many of you would say that you are committed to the principle that churches need to do something to take care of the spiritual future of our children? How many of you would agree to that? Yeah. That if we really believe what we are talking about, if we really believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, if we really believe that Christianity is a relationship with our Maker, we need to pass on our spiritual heritage to our children, not for our benefit, but for their benefit. We believe that. That makes sense. Imagine, if you will, a church in Colorado Springs. The church's name is Cornerstone Baptist.